A blessing for you, and a curse for our enemies, my dear. Surely one amongst my blessings ought to suit you well. Show no weakness, show no mercy, girl. Just look at us, girl. Our family's a mess, but we're making it work. Hera's here for you, girl, and soon all your enemies shall wish they were never born. Kronos is an old fool whose time is long since past. Aunt Hera's back, my dear, so let's have ourselves an interesting night. Nothing like jointly annihilating our enemies to bring the family closer together, Surprise, surprise, you're once again where I expected you to be. All right, girl, let's just have a look at you and see what we can do. Perhaps our family deserves all this. They will keep fighting back against it nonetheless. How odd that this conflict tearing us apart is bringing us closer together, To think all we needed was a perilous existential threat to unite this family for once. Chin up, girl. Things could probably end up much worse than they are now. Our family may be cursed by the fates themselves, but we do know how to fight. We've so many enemies, I cannot curse them all, though I can bless you. Care for a little power over life itself? Or death? I've got that too. I confess, I'm beginning to enjoy these little outings that we share. Raised in the underworld, yet you've more poise and grace than the lot of them up here. More and more it seems you're just about the only one I can depend on lately, girl. I'm in a bit of a foul mood right now, so quickly choose and go. This little tradition of ours has become something I look forward to, dear girl. The fates denied me any daughters, but at least they brought me you, my dear. Life has its wretched spans every so often, so the better times stand out. We on Olympus take our vengeance very personally, girl. Would that some others that I knew had even but a shred of your commitment. It simply is our lot to have to shoulder more than our fair share of any burden, girl. You've no idea how long it's been since I've depended upon anybody of our line. Our enemy has scorned us, and we'll make him rue the very day, won't we? I've enough power vested in me that I'm pleased to spare you some of it for now. You have more royal bearing than I would have thought. Ah, your poor father. You must have been the jewel in his eye, only to have been ripped away. He would have been so very proud. Well, perhaps not proud as such. He was never big on taking pride in anything, now that I think on it. I'm proud of you, at least. The blessings that my kin and I bestow, why, they're a bit like children, I suppose. You don't always get the kind you want, but if you're clever, you can make them work. Remember, girl, this world is ours by right. The fates themselves decided it. Now Kronos seeks to overthrow our reign. He already had his opportunity to rule. There is no going back to how things were. The Titan Kronos is no father of mine, but your father sprang from him, as did my husband, and Poseidon as well. So, now we're all tied up in this little family affair. Would that I could put another arrow in between the eyes of Kronos again myself, but, alas, you're closer, and I'm stuck. Kill him for me, would you? My sisters Demeter and Hestia and I, our father was the Titan called Hyperion. Father, by technicality, at least. You don't hear much about him anymore. We should have dealt with Kronos just the same back when we had the chance. For all his foibles, my husband makes a dangerous adversary. Why else do you think we've ruled for however many eons it's been? Zeus, doubtless, has his enemies, but few are brave or misguided enough to let on. Lord Zeus and I, we've known each other for a time. A regular old married couple we are. And yet, such awful things are often said of us. I try to brush it off. No couple is beyond reproach. Certainly not one that survived as long as we. I always wanted a little girl, you know. But I got Ares, Hephaestus. Zeus's girls, Athena and Artemis, stay well afield of me, and Aphrodite, she does what she wants. Some family we are. This matter with Kronos, it may seem unconscionable that a parent could resent their own children. But let me tell you, girl, there are moments when I almost sympathize. I realize this may seem odd coming from me, my dear, but from one goddess to another. Do not rush into marriage, as much as it may seem a wondrous idea. Consider my example, and I'm the blasted goddess of marriage herself. Our great big family, why, we would have been just a small fraction of the size if not for my husband's escapades. So many delightful children in my life as a result. Word reached me you've encountered mighty Heracles. Big, thick-headed fellow. You're not to aid him in his labours. Do you understand? He's in the middle of what we Olympians like to call a journey of self-discovery. That Heracles is Zeus's lad, you know. Glory of Hera. I should be honoured. He's just another mouth for me to feed, and one with quite an appetite at that. But I'll keep him busy, sure. We need all the help we can get. The witch at the crossroads evidently raised you well. The younger generation here, they lack in character, and their manners oft leave much to be desired. Almost as though my generation did not set the best example. I know something of witchcraft myself, girl. A subtle art, and therein lies its strength. Easy to disbelieve or to dismiss as mere coincidence. But true power need not assert itself. There are many potent reagents growing on the surface here, if you know where to look. Mere roots and flowers to the untrained eye. But in your hands, or better, in your cauldron, they'll have you working magic like never before. How about we break ourselves out of this rut, girl? So here. This is the best I've got for you for now. Do make the most of it. My mood darkens again, my dear, although it makes me rather generous, I think. Here then. The finest of my blessings. Go on and tie some knots. How fare you in your task of late, my dear? Much better than we fare up here, I hope. Oh, all of us are fine, except being besieged does mean we're stuck in closer quarters than I'd like. There's not a moment's peace. Take it from me, my dear. Don't listen to your heart. I know it's difficult, seeing as the blasted thing tends to be very loud. But if you heed it, it'll lead you straight to your mistakes more often than not. One thing I've learned, my dear, is that forever is a very long time. It seems to me that nothing truly lasts forever anymore. Perhaps that is why we find ourselves in this particular predicament. You know, I saw a flicker in the sky before, as though the moonlight shifted for a moment. But now it's almost as though that light is shining from you. You drew Selene down. She would not answer such a call from most. Ah, I see that my distinguished husband has already been in touch. Well, just in case he doesn't make the sparks fly in quite the manner you expect, I have something for you of my own. Again, Lord Zeus has reached you first, has he? The noble son of Kronos and his lightning speed. You can't imagine just how quickly he flees from me sometimes. Had I but known that stout Poseidon went out of his way for you earlier, I would have got here even sooner. The sea is unreliable, whilst my bond is forever. Figuratively, at least. Golden Apollo already offered you his aid, has he now? Always so eager to please. I find his constant doting bothersome. But doubtless you're more tolerant than I. The goddess of love, always one step ahead of me. How many mortals do you suppose would seek me out to bless their wedding vows had Aphrodite not already worked her charms on them? It seems our strengths go hand in hand. I'm pleased to see that you're agreeable with Hestia, my dear. Her temper and my own don't often mesh, but I respect her wisdom, and her power to simply burn everything down if and when necessary. We had an obligation to your father here. Each mortal death adds to the population of the underworld, after all. I tried to do my blasted part to curb the flow a bit. Have you any idea how onerous it is for mortals to give birth? I always knew Kronos would return. Zeus kept saying I was fearful over nothing. We buried the old wretch in the depths of Tartarus, after all. But he's a deathless titan. Time, it seems, slipped through our fingers. Welcome, my dear, to our world's surface. First time? It's a vast place. All sorts of different climates, mortal cultures and the like. So don't let your first impression shake your faith. It isn't always such a disaster. Mortals complained their city of Ephyra was forsaken by the gods, yet here we are, ungrateful wretches. Not had many weddings of late. Not many funerals either. Though lots of death, destruction, and the like. Is there a wedding date that I should know about, or are you merely being generous with me? In any case, when I'm offered to, there's always a catch, so here. Unbound by wedlock, yet you praise me thus. I must say you are full of surprises, my dear. Or potentially just very ignorant. Or both. You needn't be a flatterer, you know. I aid you not from love, but from necessity. If there's a lesson I can impart, it's that you ought to keep your guard up at all times. Oh, you're a frightful mess, if you'll forgive my saying, girl. I can't help you when you're practically dead. At least, not very much. What happened to all your lifeblood? That's precious stuff. Yet you've gone spilling it about, then have the nerve to thus present yourself to me. Oh, I can barely reach you as it is within that murk, and you seem even farther away now. The very outskirts of your father's realm, is it? That's not the customary path into the underworld. Confronted Polyphemus, have you then? That is the sort of help Kronos employs. A hollow fool, but strong, admittedly. No sneaking past him, I'm afraid. We've tried. We saw reports suggesting that you made it to the lowest depths. I thought perhaps you had prevailed. Though not yet, it seems. A sign of progress, nonetheless. Press on. You came closer than ever to our mountaintop. I hoped, perhaps, that we could meet at last, but we've more pressing matters to attend to now, the both of us. To level with you, girl, I don't know that you've got what it takes to thwart the Titan. But what choice do we have at this point? I'm willing to give you the benefit of the doubt. Ah, there you are again, my dear. Pity to have only met in circumstances such as these. Yet families all go through their ups and downs, yes? Let me help you help us all. Pleased to make your acquaintance finally, my dear. Welcome to our world surface, such as it is. I promised the family that once you demonstrated your resolve to us, then I'd take you under my wing. And I always keep my vows. Pleased to make your acquaintance finally, my dear. Already had enough of the surface, yes? Well, I promised the family that once you demonstrated your resolve to us, I'd take you under my wing. And I always keep my vows. The other night, given the opportunity, you sided with my kin, foregoing my boon when I first generously offered it. Whilst that little scuffle is behind us, I do not appreciate any such slights. I trust I've made myself quite clear. They said you weren't cut out for being above ground, some underworld curse holding you back. I'd not believe the hearsay for a moment, and sure enough. Perhaps they merely fear your potential. This is hardly the first time I've been pressed to intervene on your side of the family's behalf. I've stood my ground. We cannot keep getting involved in each other's affairs. Yet, if you've come to our defense, you're owed an exception. Aphrodite has quite gleefully informed me that you and certain friends of yours have grown quite close. Well, if one thing leads to another, and you decide to make a serious commitment, I should be only too pleased to oblige. We've a long-standing partnership with your good boatman there. I bring mortals into being, and marry them off after a bit. He takes them yonder to your realm. Or used to, anyway. Wealth cannot be measured in mere coin. The very idea is absurd. Yet, there you are, paying for goods and services as though Kronos has already prevailed. We're not taking any chances, girl. For instance, we are not above having our blessings transported like common parcels, if in so doing we ensure your victory and ours. No surprise that Strife Incarnate recently decided to show up as she is wont to do. Eris made good sport of us before. Must think we're fools and easy prey. You'll correct her, yes? You've seen the morning fields within your underworld, yes? A solid portion of the residents there are due to failed marriages. Most typically their own. I bless each matrimony that I can, but it can only do so much. The fates are gone then, yes? According to Hermes? Quite the unfortunate turn of events, if true. Well, if Kronos is bent on vengeance, it only makes sense that he would take it out on them, not just on us. I hardly blame them, but some mortals have grown skeptical about our governance. They have this newfangled idea of luck, strokes of fortune from thin air, sheer mindless happenstance, not the work of gods or the three fates. Each night presents to us a new beginning, isn't that so, my dear? And on this night, I shall accompany you from the very start until the bitter end. Your underworld has long since fallen, but our Olympus yet stands. You're wise to head this way, where you can make a real difference here and now. As I shall momentarily. My husband Zeus and I have spirited debates regarding how you may ensure our victory. He is too proud to seek your help here on our mountaintop, whilst I would welcome it with open arms. So, come along. Something about this night feels very odd, and in my experience, such premonitions are never to be ignored. Perhaps the strange forces at work are merely due to your invocations. Just do be careful, girl. Ah, look, my dear, it's my beloved husband, the distinguished king of the Olympians, who shall lead us all out of this mess. How goes it, son of Kronos? Any news? The truest words you've spoken in quite some time, husband. And I'm more than just your dear beloved wife, aren't I? Seeing as I am the blasted queen. Not that your authority or mine has been worth much of anything of late. Our family's unity does not come cheap. We all must work together to ensure the bonds connecting us don't fray, or split entirely, as was the case with Kronos. My lord husband knows this better than anyone, don't you, Zeus? Oh, why, we've stood together now through more hard times than I can count. I dare say we're well past due for a break. Perhaps after our present difficulties finally subside. A shame you never knew your father, girl. But at least now you know his good brother, Poseidon, here. Imagine this one, but without the foolish grin, nor the inappropriate remarks, with, frankly, better hair in finer physical form. Oh, I'll assuredly bless you and your beloved mate, whomever they may be, Poseidon. Perhaps when all of this is over, you may resume your search in earnest. But until such time, get your mind out of the gutter. I fear for the younger generation. What can you possibly achieve when you're born with our worst qualities and not merely our best? Take good Apollo here. Just like his father. You see, my dear, there are yet those upon Olympus who show their queen the proper deference. Seek not to earn the love of your subjects. Make them a bit afraid instead. We goddesses can be too proud to beg for aid. I'd never stoop to it myself. Why bother, when my hard-headed sister Hestia shall insist on intervening anyway? And at this very moment, whilst I speak, I manage it one evening at a time is how, sister. Perhaps we shall have to burn the old world down and start anew, but I can think of none more suited should the need arise. Much as your father was custodian of all the dead, so are we responsible for the rest of the world. The hour has grown dark, yes, but we have the power to restore, thanks be to my good sister Demeter. Oh, Demeter, these hands have seen more than you know. I simply do not flaunt the hardships I've endured. One can be as strong as a rock without taking on its texture. Even titans and gods are quite vulnerable creatures deep down. For we are all driven by a most delicate instrument, as liable to stir our spirits or drive us to despair, as my dear Aphrodite knows full well. I think we're past the need for such pomp, Aphrodite. But then, more goddesses ought better understand the need to keep appearances, even in troubled times. Especially in troubled times. I know full well we cannot stand on ceremony whilst our entire way of life is under threat. Yet surely my dear son Hephaestus here need not be so uncouth at every opportunity. My son Hephaestus need only prove he can exude the confidence befitting a god, rather than whatever it is he exudes instead. He's made himself useful, at least, yes? Need I remind you that I'm not particularly fond of those who turn their backs on me? How disappointing, yet how typical this is. Now it's my turn. Whom do you take me for? You think I shall simply roll over and accept this? Perhaps you belong here on Olympus after all, showing such rudeness to me. Beware of angering me thus, my dear. You'll find I have an excellent memory. We goddesses truly ought to be more committed to each other than this. My husband is very accustomed to getting his way. You need not indulge him so. This swarthy son of mine is more a draw to you than I. You may be a princess, but remember, I am the queen. In my position, a certain strictness is required, I'm afraid. We Olympians are famous for our wrath. We have to be. I took little pleasure in this girl, merely a trace, at best. Forgiveness is like a precious healing ointment, to be applied sparingly. Fine, that shall be all, I think. This type of squabble is beneath us both. You wish to test me, I shall test you back, my dear. Please, do remember that. Enough already. Here's a blessing that you could have had without a fight. Your struggles only entertained me for so long. Be gone already, girl. Look at us, bickering like an old married couple. What say we move on? Go on, girl. We each know I'm not really your queen. You're not even an Olympian. So why did you drop the act? Or if it's not an act, wise up. This is a complicated world. Cold vengeance. I can feel it from afar. I suppose my sister Demeter has more at stake in this than anybody on this mountain top. Our enemy shall rue having crossed her. Where is that Hermes when you need him? Have you seen him lately, girl? Always flitting about, impossible to pin down. Ugh, what news could there be to deliver at a time like this? Oh, at least Hephaestus is attempting to be of use. You'll have to excuse my sheltered son, girl. He'd much prefer to clang ceaselessly upon his forge than to be a part of polite society. Shrewdly decided. No choice at all. Well chosen, girl. Bless you, my dear. How thoughtful. We're a good match. Excellent selection. You made the right move. It is I. Behold your queen. Good evening, my dear. What a pleasant surprise. Why, hello. Greetings, my dear. Splendid. Very well. So be it. Granted. Perfect. Ah, yes. Then here. If you please. We might not care for it, but there's a certain power to being underestimated constantly. Right, girl? Let them think what they want. My blessings aren't merely for couples about to tie the knot. If ever you wondered whence came all the wretches in your underworld, there are such mortals who see it as our responsibility to protect them. Can you believe it? You seem adept at keeping distance from your foes. I once excelled at this myself, although I favoured an arrow through the heart over magic, which I found rather unreliable. But whatever works for you. You would be wise not to forget yourself with me. Here, let me remind you. Deep down, I value dissenting voices and opinions, but outwardly, no. We must maintain decorum. Neither can we tolerate such insubordination. If you insist on siding against me, then I insist on making you regret it. Consider yourself reprimanded, my dear. Know that you got off lightly this time. Oh, we've made enough enemies already that we hardly need more. We're royalty, my dear. We ought behave with a more regal bearing, yes? We ought be forming strong alliances, not at each other's throats. We cannot always reach you in those depths, though your boatman seems to have no trouble at all. Keeps to himself, fends for himself. I quite like him. At least this was a shorter delivery for your trusted boatman, compared with having to drag our boons all the way into the underworld. Although he probably prefers it there. Your descent into the underworld has only begun, but I would join you from the very first steps. I'd far prefer it to all my other obligations put together, let me tell you. A single, capable combatant striking our enemies from their exposed flanks may be just what we require to drive them back. Looks like you're up for the job tonight. However much you've trained, it evidently was not nearly enough if you've already taken such a beating before I can even begin to protect you. Not having a good night? Your injuries will heal eventually, my dear, but I can't make any promises about your pride. You know the Twilight Curse. Oh, I can tell. The power to change a form into another. A favourite of mine, and one small step removed from shape-shifting oneself. The possibilities are limitless, really. Yes, my dear? Regards.